Oh, he's back. The people love him. They love him. They said to me last week, I love Christian. I wish you would go longer with him. And so today, 9 hours, me and you. Let's get it started.
9 hours. Absolutely. I've got a pint of Gatorade here. I'm going to do some mid-interview stretching. 9 hours. Let's do it. It's like hands on a hard body. It's mouths on a gross Mike windsock.
That's right. And I'm happy to keep spitting on it for the next day or so. First of all, what's getting you through? What are you distracting yourself with? You doing the usual? You doing the sports? You doing the Academy Awards a little bit? Maybe a little bit
I was doing the sports, and then last night, my guy, Jalen Brunson, went down with an injury, played for the New York Knicks. Oh. And we're still waiting to hear whether it's going to be like a week's thing or a month's thing.
Oh, man, that's brutal. It's
not good.
Key player and a great guy, and now he's injured.
He's a great player, yeah, and is it's a bad scene, Pete, not gonna lie to you, but that is something I did watch the Academy Awards because I'm a cineast, as they say. What else is keeping me alive? I'm enjoying Severance. Last night my wife and I watched The Man with Two Brains, which I hadn't seen since I was a little kid.
Oh, I thought that was a flyer for Shin Yun.
No, it is not a Shin Yun flyer. It is. Do you know this movie, Man with Two Brains?
No, I don't, but I'm more impressed that you and your wife get movies on DVD at the library.
It's not. Yes, we did get it at the Queen's Library. It's not streaming. Man with Two Brains is not streaming. And so we do have a library down the street. And so rather than shell out that $4 or whatever it would take to rent it, we got the actual DVD.
Good for you. I'm sorry to tell you that Trump is closing that library now.
That's so true. It's probably it might not be the worst thing in the world. It's not a great library.
I feel like it's a stupid joke, but it does seem like anytime you find some joy, some peace. That's why I'm asking you. It seems like he ruins it. If you look, you're enjoying yourself, and then you look at the news, and you're like, "What? A fucking spaceship blew up, and now planes can't take off." I guess that wasn't.
I don't remember who said it within the last 10 days or so, but some might have been Elie Mystal. I don't remember, but it said basically that some people in this country want bad things for the people they hate more than good things for themselves.
Right. Yeah. I saw that version of that too. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's pretty accurate.
And I do. And again, it's like, obviously I'm talking about my particular sliver of the culture, but it's like, I do think that is another thing downstream from social media, because you are constantly 50 times a day, if you're scrolling, reminded of people you hate, the kinds of people you hate, and what about them you hate. Do you know what I mean? And so you're constantly having that bruise poked every time you scroll. And so I can understand it, that there's, and I don't say this is just a MAGA thing. If you were to tell me, hey, Christian, you could have $10,000 today on the spot, or redacted, could die, and that could mean one of a few people, I would probably do the latter. How much would you give up to, without making threats on any, let's take it away from elected government officials. Let's say the South African guy. How much could like a supreme being offer and be like, all right, I'll give you X amount of dollars, or his Cybertruck could blow up with him in it?
I would do anything outside of.
But if I said, Pete, you could have either that happening or you could have 50 grand. Would you take the 50 grand, or would you take the Cybertruck exploding?
I would take the 50 grand.
I don't know. 50. What about 20?
I want the Cybertruck to explode.
Yeah. 20 definitely. 20 definitely. 30, I think 35 is probably my threshold. I don't know. I think 40.
One of the most fascinating things is that, specifically with the Cybertruck and other Teslas as well, people are finding really creative ways to vandalize and marginalize people who have them. I almost feel bad for a Cybertruck owner. I don't, because what were they thinking buying it? But now they're because the back of it is flat, people have found ways to project messages on Cybertrucks and videotape it. The owner doesn't even know it's happening, but it's every part of that vehicle is being vandalized or made fun of, and the owners themselves are being ridiculed. And that is fun. I find that fun.
Yeah, I have a modicum of sympathy for whatever Model S or whatever the traditional Teslas are called. Because all right, I can believe that you bought that before it felt controversial. But it's like, no, I'm sorry. Uh, Elon being a douche was well established when the Cybertruck came out. Now it wasn't well established that he was a douche and a full blown Nazi. I guess I'll give them a little bit of credit. He was only a billionaire douche and not a billionaire Nazi douche at the time, at least in the general public's mind. But no, I don't have much sympathy. There's one in my neighborhood that drives around all the time, and I feel bad because now it's this local bakery down the street, and now they have their bakery name on it, which is helpful to me because it means I won't go there anymore. But it's like these two Pakistani dudes who own this bakery. And my wife was like, how could they possibly? And I don't know these guys personally, but I do know a lot of
Pakistani people.
No, I think that if you are a recent immigrant, especially like a recently naturalized immigrant, if you've gone through the process, I think a lot of recent arrivals to America who are processed legal, who are able to get legal status, they almost want to advertise their Americanness. Like they want to fully embrace, they're trying to assimilate. And so it's like they would have a picture of Obama, they would have a picture of Bush. And not to say that the Cybertruck is a symbol of Trump, but it's like it's a part of this kind of new, I'm American and I'm going to buy the American things.
Right.
And granted, that could be incredibly condescending and racist in its own way, but that's how I'm choosing to interpret it rather than to assume that these bakery owners are complete.
Well, you're being very generous. You could just go in and ask him, how do you like that truck? Anybody giving you grief? Just do it as a.
Have you seen me give it the finger 5 times? Because I have.
No, but I like.
No, that's what I would ask. I would ask the guy at the bakery. I was like,
"Oh wait, yeah.
Do you like your Cybertruck? And have you seen me give you the finger before?"
I thought you were posting pictures of yourself giving the finger to
Cybertruck. I'm not that arrogant. I want the owner to get the message, but I don't need to perform that.
I'm going to go ahead and say I think Elon Musk is losing momentum. I think he's failing. I think his popularity is way down. I think Trump only cares about that, and I think that's probably a good sign. I'm sure he's done enough damage and created a lot of problems and placed bugs of different sorts all over the federal government so that he can have as much of it for his own companies as possible. But it does seem to be he's on a slow trend downwards already. I don't know. What do you think?
It's weird because he's so likable. You'd think the more people got to hear him talk, the more they would like him. And yet that seems to not be the case.
Yeah.
No, I think that is definitely true. And I think that if the Democratic Party had any sort of nuts or cohesion, that they would be making him like literally the poster boy. He is a what do they call it? A soft target. There's a lot there. And will it matter? And we may have spoken about this last time I talked, but that's what I worry about, is that it's like a race to see if he can wall himself into the castle, essentially, or just absorb and exploit so much of our institutional weakness. Can he consolidate all of that before people officially are like, oh yeah, fuck this guy?
Yeah, that's the question. That's the question. And can he do enough damage and take enough contracts and cause enough problems, given all the information that he has access to? Yeah. What did you think of the speech this week? The president gave I guess it was in the State of the Union, and Democrats came, and one of them, not all the Democrats went. Your representative, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, stayed home and live posted about it, I think, on Instagram and reacted afterwards. But a lot of Democrats went, and the one guy, Congressman Al Green, he got up and he screamed, and he got thrown out, of course, and then he got censured the next day. And a lot of other Democrats held up paddles of disapproval, which got them a lot of ridicule. And it seemed like a pretty bad week for the Democrats. But I think that what was really interesting, I certainly want to get your take on, is the kind of rank and file, the establishment Democrats criticized that behavior of Al Green and said it was terrible what he did. What are your thoughts on that performance and the role the Democrats played during and around and after that speech?
To me, it just underscores what a puny weakling Hakeem Jeffries is to me, because that might be maybe overstating things slightly, but first of all, I'm not saying whether I agree with the strategy or not. Nancy Pelosi would have been able to dictate some sort of general adherence. Do you know what I mean? She would have at least known, I think, to go to people like Al Green who might not follow suit and attend to them individually. Whereas I think, I don't know what Hakeem Jeffries did, but it's like him putting out the sort of mamby-pamby, hey, let's all be nice thing. There's a lot of people who aren't going to do that. It's such a dumb strategy. First of all, the only way it works, the only way the sort of we're going to take the dignified road and not make a stink angle works is if you have 100% cohesion. If you have 100% participation and everyone is acting in coordination with each other, you only need one person to decide, no, fuck this. And then your strategy has completely been thrown in the toilet and you haven't made a point either. Do you know what I mean? It's like he could have said, every member is going to decide the way they want to deal with it. It's not up to us to dictate how people respond. These are not normal times. Right. And then his ass would have been covered, I think, without making him look weak. But the fact that it was very clear ahead of time that they did not want anybody to speak out. And then all the sort of scuttlebutt afterwards about how angry everyone was at Al Green and the censure. It's like, all right, well, now you've lost in both directions. Like you've not made a sort of unified stance of sort of dignity and embracing institutions by sitting there silently and listening to all this bullshit. But you also haven't created the kind of uproar that lets Americans know that you take this seriously and that the time for charity is done, the time for deference to these sort of dumb institutions. How can you sit there and say, I respect the dignity of the office, while literally in 2025, the president is up there making Pocahontas jokes?
Exactly.
Like why are you the only person playing this game? Who do you think is convinced by this? Who do you think is convinced? I'm sure that there are some McKinsey consultant types and moneyed interests that don't want to see any sort of outburst or anything that seems like impolitic or uncivil. Like I said, that only works if you get everyone on board with that. And the Democratic Party is a loose coalition of people with very different motivations and very different sets of priorities and dangers facing them. And it takes a lot more to get them to stay in line, I think. Again, it just underscored to me why Hakeem Jeffries is just not the guy for this moment.
Chris Hayes had a good take. I heard his show last night. He said, I don't know if it was right for Al Green to do that or not, but do something. At least he did something. Do something. And I thought that
this sort of stand back and let them embarrass themselves thing might have been a defensible strategy in 2017. But when they're literally tearing up the government and ignoring like Supreme Court orders, it's no, the time for, hey, check out these assholes is you have to show that you care enough about these things. If you're going to say that this shit is dangerous, then you have to act like it's dangerous.
What did you think about the move that Republicans pulled by bringing a child with cancer, a child of color, black kid with cancer, to the joint session? And also, was it a child? He looks like he's 40. But regardless, Democrats got...
I will not lie to you. I did not watch the entire speech. I've seen that referenced. I've seen photos of the child, but I was not devoting my full attention to it. I will not lie.
He looks like a tiny grown man is all I wanted to say. Democrats were criticized for not supporting him and not standing up. Wow. The reaction to that was, you're cutting research money for cancer.
Yeah. And these are the people who complain about virtue signaling.
Right.
That you're literally like, what do you think this is, what you're doing? And I don't want to single them out. It's every State of the Union speech since the dawn of time has had a moment like that where they basically want to guilt everyone in.
Yeah.
To me, if whatever, like you're saying with Chris Hayes, try something. Yep. What I would have done, and I don't know, are the seats signed or within your side of the aisle, can you sit where you want?
You can sit where you want, and AOC was saying that she was hearing and witnessing that Republicans were taking the Democrats' seats to make it look like they were Democrats supporting Trump's comments and ideas.
So the Republicans can sit on the Democratic side if they want to.
They usually don't. They
Right,
can.
right.
Some seats are assigned for majority leaders and so on, but most of them aren't.
What I was going to say is that if I was going to do some sort of completely meaningless protest that akin to holding up stupid ping pong paddles, what I would have done is I would have had everyone skip it except for 20 reps and have them each wearing t-shirts with a letter on it that spelled "they're stealing your retirement money." And literally, so the entire side of the aisle is empty except for these 20 seats or whatever. And literally just that. And then don't applaud, don't boo.
I love that idea, and any creative idea, you should submit it. But I'm worried the Democrats would get it wrong and they would line up wrong, and it would just say, "I'm retiring, honey."
They're sleeting your retirement movie.
Wait a second, come over here. You're in the wrong spot. But no, I like that idea. I like any idea. Let's brainstorm as many as we can from that speech.
Which is even the stupid ping pong idea. It's and granted, like I said, I was watching it while I was watching the Knicks game, and I was scrolling and seeing clips later. But if the ping pong paddles had just said like lie or not true, and everyone said that, and every time Trump said something that was not true, they held it up. At least that has some sort of like cohesive logic to it that someone watching the show can understand what's going on. But when you have one person saying like, "We don't like Elon," and another person holding like education money, like they're all holding these just random disparate things. It just like, why do they? There's that famous Mario Como quote that you govern in poetry, or no, you campaign in poetry and you govern in prose. Like the Democrats, they campaign, not even just govern, but they campaign in like terms of service agreement language. That just scroll to the bottom, sure, whatever. And it's just, so instead of sending a discernible message, they didn't look like they had dignity because they're all have these stupid props, and they have members who are walking out and making scenes. And the message they're making is completely undiscernible and vague.
Yeah.
And it means nothing because they're all holding different messages. It's so stupid.
In the age of the internet memes and very easy to use graphic programs, I would never tell anybody to hold up a sign.
Oh yeah, good point. That's a good point.
Yeah. Nobody should be holding up signs to get their message across. And I talked to my dad this week about it, and he goes, "Signs are for people without power."
That's true.
They all have some power. Signs are for those at a protest or who don't have a large platform or anything else. That's who should be holding up signs. Okay, so let me ask you then about what happened. The big story this week, I think, was the trade war starting and then stopping, and then starting and then stopping. And then it's on, it's off, it's on, it's off. And Trump looks really weak. Markets have no idea what to think. And Canadians and Mexicans are trying to figure out what their strategy is going to be. They clean the shelves of American products in Canada, and they're doing their best to try to figure out how to handle it. But the only thing it's doing is confusing people, creating uncertainty, and I think making Trump look like he's got no strategy at all. He doesn't stick to any of this. And how are we supposed to follow it? They're on, they're off. What do we know? What do you think about the trade war?
Because I think that he is trying to look tough without actually having any of the negative ramifications. Like he's already saying, except cars. We're not going to put tariffs on cars, because there was like one Fox News report where the guy said that the truck was going to go up from 80 grand to 100 grand or something like that. So
I think it's more because all of the car manufacturers and the American makers called him up and said, "You can't do this." And the thing with
right, but I'm saying 1 3-minute spot on Fox is enough for him to be like, this can't work. But yes, I agree.
It does seem like whenever he talks to a smart person, he ends up being persuaded pretty easily on any number of issues. And I'm sure once he heard from the car makers, he's okay, maybe this is not so good for me and for us.
But I think the whole point is it's like when your brother does the whole cock his fist thing back at you, and I'm not hitting you, but I'm trying. It's to put you on edge, and where you're feeling insecure and bullied, and like the punch could come at any moment. And so what do I need to do to placate this person? I mean, it really, I would love to say it's more complicated than this, but it really is just like abusive relationship shit and high school bully stuff. I hate that I have to strip it down and make it so like just teen comedy, but it really isn't much more than just high school bully Biff from Back to the Future shit.
You wish that there was some strategy to it. You want to believe that just so you can comprehend what's going on, but really it's just what you said.
And also I think that, like, not that I believe that Trump, I think Trump thinks he's going to stay in office until he's dead. Hopefully that will not be the case. I do think that there will be some breakage there. Like, I don't see a groundswell of people who want a third Trump term. But anyway, but I think he is thinking about legacy. And because he's stupid, his legacy is stupid. It's what makes leaders remembered when they take over other countries. That's why he admires Putin so much. It's like, he takes shit. It's, again, it's fucking rapist mentality. It's just like, he doesn't ask permission. There's no consent. I take it. I'm better than you. I'm bigger than you. I'm stronger than you. What you have is mine. And I think that the idea of him being the guy who like doubled the size of America is a huge boner for him, which is really fucking, even if you wanted to do that. I'm sorry. I know I keep interrupting you. I apologize. But I may have said this last week, but even if you wanted to do that, there's so many ways he could be doing these trade wars, but like him calling Trudeau like Governor Trudeau and talking about being the 51st state. It's not just that I want to dominate you. It's I want to humiliate you, and I want the whole world to see me. It's so bizarre. It's just, even the most hardcore of like conservative people don't have a problem with Canada. Nobody has a problem. It's a cliche. It was a joke in the South Park movie. The idea that we would go to war with Canada was so insane that it was a basis for a major motion picture. Canadian Bacon too. There have been a number of movies and TV shows where the punchline has been, wouldn't it be hilarious if we went to war with Canada, our best friends who are as good a neighbor as a country could possibly have?
Well, breaking now, I don't know how reliable it is because it's Mediaite. But 3 high-level sources told Mediaite that Donald Trump Jr. is seriously considering a run for president in 28. So that would make sense.
Yeah, I believe that the inside source was John Barron Jr. I believe was. I promise you that came directly from Don Jr. or from someone. And honestly, the Elon thing mixed up it rejiggered things. But my prediction, I may have said it to you, is that I had 2 predictions about the Trump second term. One of which is by the end of the 4 years, there will be some sort of televised execution of some sort. I don't know who or for what, but someone's going to die on YouTube or something like that. It'll either be run by the Trump organization or it'll be someone that's just, for some way, by the end of 4 years, there's going to be some sort of live execution. That's my prediction. And the other one was that there was going to be a power struggle between Don Jr. and JD Vance. But this was before kind of Elon. I was making this prediction back before the elections. That was before Elon came and became the daddy of the whole thing. But it is weird how little we've heard about Don Jr.
If we're talking about candidates for 28, what are your thoughts on Stephen A. Smith? You're a sports guy. You pay attention to sports things. I don't pay as close attention to it, I know I don't like him at all. My feeling about Stephen A. Smith is that he's for white people. And I put that out on social media, and all of the black people said yes. That's accurate.
100%. He's not quite to Jason Whitlock level, who's a guy you're not familiar with, but is like
I know he's real.
Yeah, he's a douche. Yeah, Stephen A. It's almost so perfect that people are thinking of him in political terms now, because there's literally no one I can think of who has degraded basketball journalism, quote unquote, more than Stephen A. Smith, who and not that he intentionally set out to ruin anything, but who was more a sign of the degradation of sports journalism in general, of just hot takes with no particular insight and just trying to force his own stupid narratives and trying to make himself the story. And so once you've decided that someone like Donald Trump can be president, why wouldn't? What other blowhards are there? And I think the reason people are talking about him as a Democrat is just because he's a black guy. I don't know that there's any other reason, because he'll go on and argue with Sean Hannity, his very good friend, according to him. And he'll say that, Pete Hegseth shouldn't be Secretary of Defense. I'm sorry, is that how low the bar is now of what we'd be willing to accept as a Democratic nominee? It's too much of a farce to even consider. But I'm at this point, it's just I don't know who Luka Doncic is.
Yeah, I paid that.
He's like, he's one of the 2 or 3 best players in the world, and he was traded to the Lakers about 6 weeks ago, and it was like the craziest trade in NBA history. Nobody can believe that it happened. And so when you tell me things like Stephen A. Smith as a presidential nominee, sure. Like that, I feel about politics the way I feel about basketball right now. It's just who fucking knows? Who fucking knows?
You got to come up with somebody who's last night at our hangout. Somebody suggested that whoever runs on the Democratic ticket, if we have another election, caveats important, it should be someone outside politics. And so, yeah,
I totally understand. Yeah, I understand the theory behind that, but come on, man, this is the way we got into this shit. It's like,
right.
We're gonna outsider them. No, we're not going to, because our people, like when I say our people, it's like people who vote Democratic, generally speaking, they at least have a surface belief that people should know what the fuck they're doing. The idea of just being like a disruptor is not enough. I think we all want that. I think that's the appeal of somebody like AOC to me, and why I supported Elizabeth Warren as well. It's like that these are voices of disruption and change, but they still understand that they need to have the rudimentary knowledge and skills of how government functions.
I agree with that, for the record. And finally, Conan is a comedy god, right? He keeps delivering.
It's I love Conan, and it was weird watching because so much of I felt like I was rooting for Conan to do well on my behalf.
Right.
Generationally, I am of the Conan generation, that Late Night with Conan O'Brien world. And not only that, a few friends of mine were writing on the show, and I was really had my fingers crossed, because it was a bit of a surprise when he was named, because he's got his podcast and stuff, but he's not at the top of anybody's list right now, I would say. But I thought he did great, and I thought he was perfect for what that job is, where he's like self-effacing and dorky. And I thought it was great, and I'm glad that the general response seems to be positive.
That's a joke. Who was it? I don't know who said it. Maybe it was Kimmel. He said Conan did so well that next year they're replacing him with Jay Leno, which I like a lot.
That joke. I don't know if you remember where they said the new James Bond was the like Amazon manager of regional sales, like whatever, James Belsky or whatever, and they had just a picture of a random dude. That was, I don't know if you knew Dan Cronin, our old friend Dan. I texted that was Dan. Yeah, it was great. Like to see like a friend of mine just pop up on the screen of the Oscars is fucking awesome.
I screamed. No one heard it, but I was excited that Dan and his wife was there, and of course our friend Lori.
This is the first time in years. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Laura Kilmartin. Yep, she was writing on it.
Yep.
But Cambry has run an Oscar party either at QED or at a comedy club for the past 20 years. And she did it again this year, but at QED, we just sold it, and the new owner took over on March 1st, and then the Oscars on March 2nd. But she went over there to help host the party, but I didn't have to go. And so this was the first time that I have not been stressed, because I usually either have to host the Oscar party and or I'm grading ballots, which is so maddening, trying to do the math of like who has what. And
so you got to enjoy it for what it is.
I was chilling out. I had a big fat edible, and I was enjoying myself.
Oh, good for you, buddy. All right, we'll end on that because it's a happy-ish note. I appreciate you, as always, going through the week and giving me your reaction to all kinds of things. And I'm
going to see you in Vegas.
See you in Vegas.
Yeah.